Greetings ladies and gents, welcome back to the Craft Hammer. I'm your host Stefan, and this is video 3 out of 3 for the Army Showcase of my Space Marine collection. And more specific, we are looking at everything that is a HQ, a character, an epic hero, and a few metal models that are in this section which stand out above, let's say, your average battle line troop. Before we go any further, make sure to subscribe, like this video, check out the other 2 videos, maybe after you watch this video, but I definitely recommend that you watch them in sequence. It does help kind of look through the story of the collection. Now this is going to be a much longer video than the previous ones. As you can see, we have a number of characters here. And what I want to do is, obviously I'll give you a little panoramic and give you some close-ups, but I do want to bring them up close and I guess explain what they are and go through the story behind some of these models. Some are more unique than others and I have a bit more in my mind about them, and others are just kind of a bit more of a generic character, but I do want to give you all the details. Some of you, if you've watched videos that I released, I'd say over a year, like before kind of my recent wave, I had some of these models on the painting block and they were obviously only primed or they were getting built, so you might recognize those ones here now fully painted up. I do have a number of HQ characters, especially metal models, that are still in the backlog, which I want to eventually add, especially some of these older ones that I have here at the front, which I'll give you some close-ups. And I'm gonna try and break things down, I suppose, by like theme. We do have a number of chaplains here at the back. We have some librarians here, some apothecaries, a few stragglers, and maybe some Primaire stuff that we'll kind of put together. And yeah, hopefully you will enjoy this video. I will set up now with a little magnetic sheet in the front. For those of you who are curious, it is better to go back to the first video to know that I am a collector of both Blood Angels and Black Templars, and my own homebrew chapter. So this is most of them themed with the homebrew chapter, unless they have specific Blood Angels or Templar iconography, but even then still themed to my homebrew chapter. Let me give you a panoramic and then we'll go into the specifics. So let's see in a bit. Here is a quick overview of what we have in the collection. We have some librarians in this section, apothecaries behind, a few random things, I suppose. We'll get into those, don't worry. We have a lot of metal models at the front. Some are obviously chapter masters, etc. Some are, like, I believe this is a Sternguard veteran. Then the center bulk here is captains / lieutenants, depending on what they're sold as. Tiny little contingency of Black Templar specific characters. We got an old command squad. We have some chaplains on this line, 2 tech marines at the back, and yeah, so that's kind of roughly what we have. And I think what we'll do is start off with the old classic command squad. Keeping this quick and short, this is the original command squad that they used to have. I believe the upgraded Primaris version is Company Heroes. We do have a good old Ancient. I haven't given him anything on the actual tabard yet. A veteran with a plasma. I believe this was supposed to be a lieutenant. Of course we have the captain at the front. And I know I have an apothecary group back there, but I know that this is part of this squad, so I thought I'd put him here. And of course, a good old company champion before I got my hands on the Emperor's champion at the back. So fairly straightforward, nothing too special here, but it's definitely a nice little addition to any collection. Now we have what I call the Straggler group. This is the original Luft Huron, obviously made to look as part of my company, and I gave him a different head. I just liked the model, so hence why I got it. Nothing real special. I haven't actually ever used pretty much any of these guys in a match. Maybe I've used the Lieutenant, which is obviously a more recent one from the Leviathan. We also have a tiny, I believe he's the chapter master of the Carcharodons. I just can't remember his name. He is definitely not proportioned properly, considering he's supposed to be a bit larger than your average Space Marine. And of course we have a Cataphractii Praetor, which was part of the Horus Heresy little box set where you get him and the Chaplain. The Chaplain I didn't manage to create properly, so he's still stuck in limbo for now. But yeah, these are the guys that are just not really thematic to anything, and mostly just as part of the collection than anything else. Now, if you're looking for the accurate names of some of these, this is definitely not the channel for you. Some of these names are just I'm gonna completely forget. Anyway, these are my jump pack themed characters. I do have one or two more that are part of the Librarians and Chaplains, but that will be in those groups. Starting from the left, we have a Kit Bash idea that was from, I believe, their Tabletop Tactics, and it's the Flesh Eaters army that they have. So it's pretty much roughly a copy of that with my own Eviscerator, some thematic Blood Angels themed shoulder pads, and of course I believe that's the Inferno pistol. So I just made my own Blood Angel Smash Captain, and then of course, let me see if I can pull him out. I can't remember this guy's name, but he is from the Blood Angels Horus Heresy, and I couldn't not get him. He definitely looks cool, and I liked his pose, so that's that guy from the Horus Heresy. And of course, before they actually created a Dante, I had to go and get my own version from online. I think they are called War Games exclusive. You should be able to still find them around. I haven't been able to find the old metal Dante, and I didn't want to get one of the Finecast versions, so that's why I got this one. Moving to the right, we actually have, I believe is it the Vanguard Veterans, and this is the old metal model. I wasn't able to get a full squad, but this guy was very cheap at only £5, so then I've kind of changed him up to be gold as like a captain. If I manage to eventually get a full squad, they will join him fully gold. I still need, as you can see, some of them. For example, he has flowers and tufts, but these guys are kind of missing it, so I need to eventually go back to some of these HQ characters and start adding it, because it really contrasts badly when you see some of them bare boned while other ones do start to look very nice. And of course, last but not least, is the Master of Executions, and he is very weirdly proportioned. I tried to change out the head to be a helmet and found that it is such a contrast in the size. He is more closer size to the old Imperial Guard models than he is to a Space Marine, so I had to keep his unhelmeted head, unfortunately. But I do think the model looks cool. It's just weird that it's such a bad proportion and shrunk in comparison. Let's move on to the next squad. Again, a slight mishmash of what we have. We have an original Death Company metal model. Definitely like how he turned out. This is, again, I believe the Sternguard Veteran metal model, which I decided to kind of make him like a fallen captain or lieutenant to the Death Company, hence why he has black armor. He is supposed to be leading the actual Death Companies that I have. If you've seen my Blood Angels video, this is the guy that would be with them. And I could not resist this awesome Tech Marine. He does have a slight, I'm actually not sure where this specific shoulder pad comes from. I just kept it since it was obviously second hand, and the pistol itself is in fact a Chaos pistol that I then added a Melta like firing thing, the muzzle. So he turned out great. I think he is one of my favorite old metal models. And before GW managed to create the Primaris Tech Marine, which I haven't yet got, I simply went and got the Forge Father for the Iron Hands, took off the Iron Hands specific logos and just turned him into my own version. So that is little Tech Marines and Death Company in my collection. Now, the apothecary that we saw at the beginning was in fact the very first one that I painted. I wasn't a big fan of how finicky the white paint was turning out, so I kind of switched over to a more charcoal looking paint, and I think it turned out pretty decent with the apothecary. I think this is the Biologist, the one from Leviathan. I think he turned out the best, especially when it comes to viewing this in real life and not on camera. The matte varnish that I put at the very end for him really makes it nice and charcoal. It definitely stands out above the rest, and I think the finish of it is so much better. Now we have the old classic Primaris Apothecary, the Apothecary Biologist. I'm not too certain where exactly these specific ones are from, but this is the old metal model. I believe this was supposed to be an original Sanguinary Priest. Again, I just slightly gave him a jump pack with a bolter add-on to his hand from the Sanguinary Guard, just to make sure he looks like a Sanguinary Priest. And of course, before the recent update with the Primaris version, we have the old Sanguinary Priest. Now let's move on to the next squad. If you saw my previous video with the Black Templars, you know I am a big fan of the Blade Guard, and of course I had to get all the heroes that are for them. We have the 2 lieutenants that I gave little crests on top of their helmets, and of course the captain from the Indominus box set with the, I believe this is the Blade Guard Ancient. Definitely enjoy these models. I haven't used them in a while, but I would like to maybe play a themed force soon with the Blade Guard themselves. Now, keeping with the captains and the lieutenants, we have the following. I do have the Praetor that was released with the update of the Horus Heresy. I really liked the axe wielding one specifically. Wasn't a big fan of the other one with the sword, so I got him in a separate blister that I was able to get. We have the Gravis Captain that is from, I believe, the Dark Imperium. He is the one that if you scrape underneath, it will be the blue plastic. We of course have an updated Gravis Captain, which when he first came out in the box that was, I think it was some sort of kill team box, where the Gravis Captain and the Gravis Intercessors came out, and I managed to pick him up, I think for like a €5 or €10, like literally 2 days after that box came out. Someone obviously didn't care about the Space Marines, so I was able to snatch it up really quick at a great price. And moving on to the right, I can't particularly remember if this one had a specific name, but I do believe it's supposed to be a homage to the original or the old 2nd or 3rd edition Blood Angels Captain that was on the artwork with the yellow fist, and he is obviously leading a charge of some sort, and this was supposed to be the Primaris version, so I had to get my hand on him. He looks great, and he's one of my favorites that I managed to paint up. And of course, as I previously said, I have no clue about the names. I believe this guy was Lieutenant, I believe with an A, something with an A. I swapped out the power sword and gave him a power fist just because he looks pretty cool, and he is, you know, celebrating victory. So pretty cool captains with a lieutenant, and nice addition to the overall collection. Now we move over to the models that are more thematic towards the Black Templars. Going from the left is the old, well, it's not a Games Workshop, it is again a War Games exclusive model that I use as the actual Emperor's Champion. He is not on the right base anymore though, so most likely I will need to proxy him for something else if I use him in a game. With the new Emperor's Champion just beside him, I of course wanted to put a lot of the high characters or like heroes in gold armor, so that's why my Emperor's Champion is in gold with a red tabard. For those of you who might have seen the November tournament recap, we do have one of my favorite recent models that I painted, which is the Terminator Captain with some nice decals on his shields, on his shoulder pad. I think he turned out so well. One of my best painted models. Nothing too like special in terms of technique, it's just fairly straightforward, but I think the contrast of all the colors really make him pop and he is definitely a centerpiece for the army as a whole. Then of course we move on to the Marshal. Love how he looks, pretty cool. And of course the Castellan. As I said, I need to add some flowers and tufts on some of these guys, but I'm quite happy how these guys turned out, and they're all painted up nicely. Now we have a group of golden heroes. Sometimes I do actually wonder if I should have had my scheme for my Marines being gold, with obviously some slight deviations for the heroes. I do like how the metallic colors end up, and either gold or silver look really well overall on the Space Marine armor. So here is another group of that. We have a classic Captain Tycho. Need to fix his base, that's for sure, but I gave him a little flag on top and made sure that he hasn't fallen to the Black Rage yet. I would like to find another metal version of him and also paint it up in black. I think that would be pretty cool, and maybe also the most recent Captain model that came out would be cool to do a similar notion. Now we do have another Sternguard veteran, which apparently is one of my most popular photos on Instagram. I don't know why in particular, but yeah, he is supposed to be either a captain or a lieutenant. Again, didn't manage to get a full squad of the original metal Sternguard veterans, so for now he is by himself until I manage to get a squad for him to go around with. We do have that special edition Space Marine Captain that was part of the magazine. I managed to run down to my shop and get a copy of him, so he's definitely looking pretty cool. And of course the classic Captain with a banner on his back, some sort of combi weapon. This particular one is a grav gun, and of course a power weapon. This one reminded me a lot of the old model that used to be in Assault on Black Reach, which is where I started, and of course I had sold that model and haven't been able to find a copy of it, strangely enough, so this was the closest thing that I could get that would resemble that nostalgia that I have. So yeah, here are the golden heroes. Now we do have these Primaris chaplains that I used. In fact, both of the heads are actually from the Venerable Dreadnought, but I'm not entirely too impressed by these ones. To be honest, I didn't do the greatest paint job, and they're not really the star of the show. So let's get into what I think is probably in the top of one of my favorite parts of the whole collection. Between these guys and the Librarians, I think they are some of my favorite HQs. Apart from this one, which is in fact just a normal plastic one, the rest are all metal, and I had a blast painting each one of these. They are slightly different in terms of the actual composition of the armor. For example, I believe in this one I added a light blue into a mixture of black, or was it charcoal gray? And then I think one of them has purple. So they all have a slight variation of black tinted with some sort of color. I know that he is just straight up, I think it's Black Templars. We have the Lamartie's model that is, I think it is the Black Legion contrast, so they all have different variations. The only strange part that I found was that this one specifically has an open face and not a skull helmet. And then we do have, first of all, this previous version of Lamartie's, which of course I will eventually get the new one to add to this collection. And if I remember correct, I believe this was his predecessor. So I think this is the very first Lamartie's, or there might have been another. I know there is one that has a very strange looking Crozius, which I haven't been able to get my hands on, but I definitely think since this guy is Blood Angels themed, either he was the Lamartie's in between him and the very first one, or he's just a Blood Angels themed one. If you do know, let me know down below in the comments. That will be pretty helpful. And one of my favorite ones from this specific little range that we have here is in fact this guy that I gave a little banner with some Blood Angel decals. Now another section that I really love from my collection is the Masters of the Chapter. These were models that were either you were supposed to use as a chapter master itself, and it would lead your entire force, or each company would have a specific captain that would be, a master of specific rights. For example, this one, which is in fact a different variant of the Sternguard veterans, someone had made into the Master of Signals, hence they have this interesting backpack. So I actually bought it with this backpack and have kept it as a Master of Signals. And these other ones, I think one of them is like the Master of the Recruits, one of them is a Master of Ordnance, so that type of concept. And I really love the way they look. I gave them all little Blood Angels themed heads, which I think look great. And luckily enough, I have been able to kind of roughly finish this side of the collection. And what I mean is, in my backlog I do have the actual specific Master of Rights and the Master of Marches, and I think a third one after that. So I'm actually able to get all of them ready. Now they're not painted and built, but eventually they will, and they will join these guys, and I think they're gonna look so great all together. Now I've had to split this group into two sections since they wouldn't be able to, fit comfortably in frame. And of course we start with the librarians. We've got a classic metal model which has a force staff and a book. Pretty cool, definitely like how he came out. I believe this guy is from the Death Watch, and he is a Blood Angels themed specific librarian that is part of what used to be the big kill team that was mixed with the different chapters. And I did in fact magnetize his backpack because I do have another jump pack similar to this one that I want to be able to flip in and out, just because I think he looks like he's about to either jump or he's just landed from being in the air with a jump pack, so that's why he looks the way he is. And of course, who couldn't forget about the most famous librarian, better than Tigurius from the Ultramarines, that's for sure. Only joking, but he obviously is pretty cool. We got Mephiston. I don't have the Primaris version. I will eventually get it. I do want to have him in a Primaris version for sure, but I did want to make sure that I get the old metal version of him. And yeah, I had quite a bit of fun painting him up. He looks definitely cool. And then to the right is an interesting model. It is in fact a Master of the Chapter metal model underneath that someone had given this staff, which I'm not entirely sure where they got it specifically, but they did cut off the arm that was here and gave this staff. I swapped out the pistol that he had with an Inferno pistol from the Blood Angels, and I believe this is a Dark Angels veteran helmet that the previous owner had put on top of this. So I slightly switched out, gave it a different pistol, gave him a Blood Angels themed shoulder with a jump pack, and then the original person gave the staff and the head with the metal body of the actual character. So I thought it would look great as a librarian with a jump pack. Very happy with how he turned out. Now let's move on to the second part of the librarians. Now we can't forget the Terminator librarians. Some of my favorite models right here in this frame. Obviously the Templars don't have librarians, so everything here is themed for the Blood Angels themselves. And starting from left, we have a specific one that was specifically made for the Blood Angels, so nothing changed there, definitely just bog standard. We of course have the updated version from Leviathan. I changed up how I made the blue here. It is in fact a Grey Knight steel underneath, washed with Talisar blue, which gave such a nice effect. It's really great to see in person with a bit of matte varnish to kind of lock it in, and I think it's one of the best models that I've painted, with a nice little Blood Angels decal just there. Looks pretty cool. And then we can't forget the classic metal version, and it took a while to find this because I specifically wanted to make sure that I get one with the book banner that is on the back, because so many of them don't have this banner, which I'm pretty sure originally came with this model, but obviously it's not an easy thing to pin and make sure that it's stuck to the top of the model. Obviously a lot of people had it, either they weren't able to stick it on top or it broke off and they never bothered to put it on. So it took quite a while to make sure that I was able to find one specifically with that banner, and the matte varnish just makes him stand out so much. Very happy to have him. I don't know if I'll ever actually play him, since I don't see the point in risking damaging that banner when I have obviously these plastic versions just to the side. He's definitely something that kind of stays in my collection as a trophy, just to have for display purposes. And of course, I can't remember the name as usual. This model did actually come out on my birthday, I think 2 years ago, or maybe, yeah, I think it was 2 years ago. So of course I just had to get him. He looks pretty cool with his, I swapped out his shoulder pad with a skull version, and I think he looks pretty cool. Definitely another favorite of mine. I hope you've enjoyed coming along on this journey. I know it's probably going to be a long ass video when I'm trying to edit it. It's just that I am obviously quite a big fan of HQ characters and how they look, specifically interesting poses, anything that kind of stands out than a generic model. Metal models are obviously a favorite of mine just because of how they look. I think they have some personality that is just sometimes missing from your generic plastic models. Of course, we also do love some of the old plastic models, which are included as part of the army showcases that I've done. Hopefully, I won't be too rambling too much. Make sure to subscribe. We'll be looking at more Space Marine content. Soon I'll give an update on the actual Bretonnian Force and how that's coming along, because I would like to do some old world content and eventually go to either a game or a tournament for that. The Space Marines, the focus is Black Templars in January and February. Get up to 1,000 points minimum, get up to 2,000 points, and have specifically themed content that I will be hopefully building and painting. So lots more content to come. I will see you soon, and we'll have some more interesting topics. Until then, drop us a comment what you thought of the models, which was your favorite. Give us a like, really helps us out. Make sure to subscribe, share it with your friends, and I guess until next time, take care folks.